Okay, so today I'm talking about the Wilson Vesper. Now, I know a lot of other reviewers have probably already talked about this, but I happen to get my hands on this because one of my pickleball buddies bought this and he let me use it for about a week. So I've played about 8 or 9 games, I think, with the Wilson Vesper, and I have some thoughts. Okay, so I've put some stats on the screen here. I want to give you my first impressions and then dig in a little bit more. Right off the bat, it's a great looking paddle. I really like the way the paddle looks. I like the design of it. It looks clean, and it looks a lot like a tennis racket, especially with this throat hole here. It feels great in the hand. I think this is one of the best handles that I've held on a pickleball paddle in a long time. It's got a little bit bigger of a bump at the bottom. Some people don't like that. I don't mind it because I don't really hold my paddle like this very much. I often will hold it just like that. Looks great, feels great in the hand. It's a very stiff paddle, so I think part of that has to do with how the frame is made. This frame is actually, they use a bladder technique where basically they put the carbon fiber for the frame in a mold, and then they expand this bladder so that the carbon fiber will fit in the mold. And so this is entirely one frame all the way around into the handle. You don't have polypropylene or foam down here. It's the same carbon fiber that's used to encapsulate the core, which is a honeycomb polypropylene core with foam around the outside to suspend that polypropylene core. So a lot of tech went into this. This is the Vesper Power 14, and yeah, it's got power. It's got power and pop. It's supposed to be an elongated paddle, but if you're looking at the face, you might be thinking, that doesn't look like an elongated face. Well, that's because the elongated is the total length. Handle feels, two hands, two-handed backhand. We're talking about effectively a 7-inch handle on this paddle. So if you are a fan of the two-handed backhand, this is going to be a paddle for you. All right, let's move on to how this paddle plays. I mentioned that the paddle felt stiff. It does feel stiff. You get a lot of feedback from the paddle when you're hitting the ball. I found the sweet spot to be pretty narrow and small. I had a hard time finding it at times. I think it's more towards the end of the paddle here, and rather than down here. I think it kind of like maybe flares out a bit. That's what it felt like to me, instead of kind of just an oval in the middle, which is what you often see in a pickleball paddle. When you do hit that sweet spot, you know it. You hear it and you feel it. You feel it in the paddle as you feel the vibrations come down into the handle. And these aren't bad vibrations. These are good vibes, not bad vibes. And you hear it when you hit it. I found myself really missing the sweet spot quite a bit on this paddle. I don't know if it's because the handle length is longer than I'm used to, or just because it's narrow. I had a hard time finding the sweet spot on this paddle. As far as play at the kitchen, I was popping up some balls every once in a while. I think it's due to the poppy nature of the paddle. I did find that if I was resetting the ball was resetting deep. Now, I will say that I caught a lot of players off guard because the ball came off the face of the paddle so fast when I was doing a reset, and they weren't expecting the ball to come back that quickly. However, it also led me to kind of keeping my resets a little high, and they could get countered at times. So I want to get back to the fact that this is an elongated paddle. So here's a Joycent Halo X5, which I reviewed previously, and here's the Wilson. I'm going to put these up against each other, and you can see really the difference in the size of the amount of surface area that you have to hit with this paddle as opposed to this one. Again, the elongated is for the total length of the paddle, which is the same, but the elongated on this is more in the handle than it is in the paddle face, which makes the sweet spot a little bit smaller. And like I said, I found it harder to find. Overall, I'd say the Wilson Vesper Power 14 is a good paddle. But it lacks the high level of spin that we've come to expect from a lot of paddles. And I think even though it's an elongated paddle, it ends up being more of an all-court paddle than a power paddle. Again, the power is there. It's not crazy power, and it probably leans more towards power than all-court, but it's not like out there in the power category with a lot of other elongated paddles. I think if this had a grittier face, you could do a lot more with this paddle, but just as it stands right now, I don't think it has enough spin in order to offset the power that's in it. Another thing is if you are into paddle customization and you want to add weights to the side here, this is indented, and so it makes it a little difficult to add any weight. Even at the top, it's indented here as well. So about the only place that is really convenient to add weight is on the corners and on the throat of the paddle as well. I think players coming from tennis would really like the Vesper Power 14, especially if they have really good technique. I found it difficult to find the sweet spot on this paddle, but perhaps someone with better technique than me would not have that problem. So overall, it's a good paddle, but I can't recommend it for most players. I think advanced players and players with a strong tennis background will get a lot out of the Wilson Vesper Power 14. What do you think? Have you played with this paddle? What are your thoughts? Leave them in the comments below. I'd really like to hear. Thanks. Bye.